Hello everyone, I'm Olli. I'm from Finland and I'm part of a research group which does augmented reality. You all are familiar of augmented reality. Everyone knows Pokemon Go, yes? We're like hipsters in the augmented reality scene because we did it before it was cool. And last summer, we tested out in Luostarinmäki museum area our augmented reality product. Why the image looks like that? Okay, it's buffering. And the idea was that you could do your adventure by going through this historical area and find augmented reality people to interact with, and they will tell you a story by creating scenes and talking like the people, dressing like the people at that age and time. We tried to be educational, we tried to be authentic. We had historians and museologists doing this with us. And of course, it wasn't that kind of a game. It was an adventure because you could finish it if you just had the patience to do it for 30 minutes, 3/4 of an hour. Yes. There. So, the usability test was conducted during 3 weeks last year's summer. And we tried to have 150 visitors to our sample size, but we got 130, and we were quite happy with that. The main idea was to know what have we done correctly, what have we done wrong, would this be something to people would want to buy, people would want to use, and what should be done differently in the next time. So we hired some students, and they were sitting like that the whole summer in the museum area, so it wasn't that bad of a summer job for them. And yes, these are the themes that we tried to find information about. So we had various gender and education levels, but as you can see, master or other academic are overrepresented because all we did was ask everyone who came to the museum that would you like to test this for free. And there were a lot of young children, some teenagers, and some young adults, middle-aged people, a tad bit of the older people too. And we asked some background questions. Most of people think that museum can be entertainment, but hey, they came to museums. And many of those have never visited that museum before, but they thought almost all that it can be a learning experience. Most of them were somewhat interested in technology and in gaming and in culture and in museums. No one was strongly disagreeing about interest in museums, but they were in museum. They used computer regularly, smartphone regularly, tablet computer, which we used to generate the AR experience, not that much. But most of them still used. And first interesting thing, most of them were interested in gaming, but then there was that lot of people who play only a few times a year or never, very interested in it. Well, the first impression was very good. They thought it was interesting, they understand the idea, how it worked quickly. And in every group, it was very high, but those who have done only high school, secondly, they were very, very impressed with it. With the museum visits, the first impression was best with those who had the most times in that particular museum, because they were, of course, interested in new content that the museum could say. Those who have once or twice been there were the least, but still they were impressed. The experience seemed to be pleasant, and people wanted to play more of this kind of games. Or so they answered to us. And the males were a tad bit more critical about it than the females, which liked it a little bit more then. And it didn't actually work, in my opinion, because while we use this point cloud tracking, it's hard to sometimes find where you are. You have to move and wait, and it can take up to 2 minutes, 3 minutes to find a spot so that the action would be played. But they were nice enough to say that the technical functionality was good or not good or bad. But compared to all the other data what we got, these were the worst. So we kinda analyzed that it wasn't that pleasant to use, and the technical functionality of the app wasn't that good, like compared to all the other, at least. The kids like to use it. They were the main group who liked to use this, and they think this was cool. The young adults, they were the most critical of this, and this graph says it better. Only the young adults were strongly disagreeing with the pleasantness, and most of the kids and middle-aged people were saw this as most pleasant. And the technical functionality again, yes. It was constructed as scenes so people would go to different places in the museum area. So navigation between them was so easy, and moving with the device was easy. This was something we were very afraid of, because as you saw from the video, the ground wasn't exactly pavement. And it was hard to move, and most of the museum area is inaccessible for, let's say, a wheelchair. And getting good grip, well, some people like the pad, some people don't. Most of them like to use it. And finding the virtual content wasn't always that easy in the area. But of course, they are all old wooden buildings with the same color, so the museum area itself is a kind of complex area. Having conversations seemed to be easy. Using virtual objects, yes. Menus and buttons were mostly used in the lower area, so they seemed easy. And the application seemed to be guiding people good. So, well, about the content, storyline seemed interesting. It was generated by history students and history PhD students and professor. And the virtual content was pleasant. We had a 3D artist to do all the virtual content. And storyline was found easy to follow. But then when we came to education, many of people didn't seem to get anything new about it. The game seemed to be in okay of a length, about 45 minutes. But there was some problems with people that they didn't know which part of the story was actually historical. Let's say the kids didn't have shoes on. It was actually a fact. But did that happen? Well, that actually, the story didn't happen, but it could have. There wasn't anything that wouldn't be against history, and that was, but it was bothering some people that they didn't know the separation of it. And the kids seem to learn a lot about the past. The young adults, not so much. Again, about the length, when they say that this was just a good length, yes, then more scenes, less scenes is still more varied. More historical background information was requested, and they would, many of people would like to access the adventure later outside the museum. So if generating similar kinds of things, it is good to know that, let's say, a social media or another kind of accessing to the adventure could be made. Then the business. Most of the people saw that the application board added value, but still they wouldn't pay for it. They don't want to pay for it. Added value, willingness to pay. So about a third would pay for the application, and most of the people saw that it should be sold separately. So you come to museum, it's €3 to come in and €3 again for the rental of the pad and the app itself. Or, as most people say, that €1 to €2.50 would be a good price. Many of the people said that there could be commercial content. Mostly young people say that the commercial content is okay. And as older people say that it doesn't fit to this museum area. And some people could pay for additional content. So for the conclusions, the AR adventure seems to have demand potential and seems to add value. And it seemed to be a proper thing in that cultural atmosphere, so it wasn't too bad to use there, or it didn't stand out too much when it was promoted to the values we made it for. But the monetarization thing, there's no single one-fits-for-all method. So many different methods should be analyzed and further developed to find the best method for the place to get money out of this. What we analyzed from the data and from the user's perspective, a low threshold approach, because augmented reality isn't that popular, isn't that well known, or wasn't then. Now we have Pokemon Go. And the easy access to the content must be made, and promote the possibilities for new and accepting experiences. Hey, you have never tried this, please try it. There is potential for selling this when people get more familiar with AR. Well, that's what we thought then. Now we have Pokemon Go, now we have to test this hypothesis. And overall, it seems these kinds of apps have their place in the market. Several people are willing to pay, but is that enough? Do they pay enough? Is there enough people to pay? These are kind of expensive software to do. So what's next? We have been doing the business model analysis, and it has been already accepted in our academic mind track. We want to distinguish the frustration which people had by using it over the functionality, usability issues, and overall lack of interest with each other. They have to be separated more and better to have better results. But how to do that? If you know, please tell me. I don't know. And we are starting new usability studies this fall with our new software. We try to promote the separation of fact and fiction in the storytelling, and I hope it will be accepted in CPE comp. And we are doing more research on the field of cultural heritage applications, also for the user experience accept, and we have at least one paper in VSMM in Kuala Lumpur next month. And we try to do a book about it, to create guidelines about it, and it's due to next spring. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ollie. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ollie. You spoke about the commercialisation as an end product. Can you please explain what the costs are to develop it to that stage, particularly if you'd had to pay for the programming effort rather than be doing it yourself?
Well, first of all, when you have the base program, which does the analysis of the 3D objects in front of you and makes it into the point cloud, then most of the problems are in generating the 3D material. That's the expensive one. And it varies a lot because, well, I have done some things in 3D Designer with those, but they are not looking good. So if you want to do proper job, you have to hire a more expensive guy, and it starts to be more and more expensive. One guy did all that 3D, if I don't like that much, in 3 or 4 months. So it's 20,000 with all the costs to do. Yeah, for if you employ one guy to do that. Of course, you would like to pay for the story, and then what is the playwriters?
So sorry, it's €20,000 for the development, but what about you would have had to do designs, you would have had to do heuristic testing on the designs, usability testing on the end product. So total cost, if you were doing this commercially, you know, you're talking about
I'm talking about hundreds
€2.
of thousands.
Yeah, so in terms of just charging €2 of people who come to the museum, it's going to take you forever to get your money back.
Yeah. So many of the aspects in that thing is to promote the museum itself. And in analyzing that, well, the British Museum could get money out of it. Let's say the Art Institute of Chicago could get money out of it. They have so much visitors. But a small place like Luostarinmäki, they had to ask everyone 20, 30 euros when coming in to have that kind of software now. But all the time it gets easier and cheaper, and the main costs will be in place mostly with the storytelling and with the digital arts to get the 3D models and get these moving correctly.
Thank you, Ollie. Just a comment really on the willingness to pay. I think there is good information out there about willingness to pay in general. I'm thinking of my own experience in museums in Japan, where it's very common that they have an extra payment audio guide facility available. And to give context to this work, I think it would be useful to look at the reports which are probably available from public museums about the take-up of those, but also possibly the costs that are involved in producing them, because some of them I've seen are narrated by serious actors, and therefore would have a significant cost available, both in developing the script and in paying the actor.
Thank you. We, in the next paper, took that museum guide as a counterpart to analyze it. But there is this problem that museum guide can be done in-house easily, and the hardware is can be used for years, whereas this is more like once do this and put a lot of money to it. So in that sense, the willingness to pay compared to the price is, well, a tad bit different.
I just have a short question about like how you ask the questions, because it seems like you had like kind of like an axis of EC, and
Sorry?
it was more like about how you have been asking the questions in this usability test. So when you were going through your slide, it was very much about like good and bad, or EC or non-EC, and I was just thinking about how you generate your questions and what impact it has on the outcome in terms of landing on your conclusions. Could you have been asking about the heaviness, or how it increases knowledge or fantasy, or I'm just like, it's more like a method question I'm interested in.
Yeah, so how we ended up with these particular questions. Well, I wasn't in that meeting. This is most of the these questions are done by Mr. Kaapo Seppälä, who is the main author of this paper, and he did this study, and I wrote a paper about the research. So you have to ask Kaapo. It's kaapo.seppala@utu.fi. I can give you it.
Hello, thank you very much. I would like to ask you about the game design elements that you put in the application, because you focus a lot on usability and functionality, but do you have some gameplay? Could you be, would you be able to interact with the characters and bring like a better sense of cultural presence and a meaningful understanding of the place?
Well, it's possible. We only we tried to do this as much not a game-like thing and more like adventure thing in a purpose, because we wanted to keep the boogeyman in gaming away, because there are people who think that gaming is only for the kids, and but the adventure could be more for everyone. So that's why we don't have any crosshairs or hoods here. So it's only the big screen and walking there and just the texts when you interact with the characters.
But sorry, by adventure you mean like following a story through interacting with characters and with the place, or because that's also a game?
Well, it was more of an interactive story. You couldn't be killed, and you always ended up in a conclusion. But there was a couple of different endings in this. So depending on what you chose, and did you return some things, and did you do a side quest there, and that kind of things. So in a sense, it was an adventure game-ish, very much. But
okay, thank you. It was very interesting. And your focus is on usability. And my question is, are you considering also to pay attention to user experiences? Because usability and user experience is not the same. So,
well, we tried to do this user experience things in asking. These are well. By asking about was it pleasant, and was it found interesting, and was it found learning experience. So in a sense we tried to find the user experience, but we didn't do that much of interviews with testees, because we just didn't have time for it. And with that kind of a more one-to-one discussion, we could have had more of the experience data out of it.
Yes, maybe one last question, just about augmented reality in general. I would be interested in what your take is on the devices. Now you're doing this with the tablet that you always have to hold in front of you. What do you see on the horizon? I mean, there has been Google Glass for some time, but then it has been there not really, and now it's apparently gone again. Do you know anything about why that is, and what are the devices of the future, maybe on technologies for augmented reality?
Well, we tested many of those Google Glass-ish types of augmented reality glasses, and we found out that the technology is not ready yet. And it's very hard to use, let's say, like glasses when you have to focus here and then you try to focus there. You can put your finger there, try to focus your eye to your finger and then to the distance. All over and all over again. It gets hard and painful quickly. I believe that the next step in the mixed reality scene is the virtual reality glasses. We have tried several of the Oculus Rifts and other similar things, and they are awesome. They truly are. If you have extra money, buy yourself one. You just are there so much more than with a computer screen or a tablet. Yeah.
Where they seem to have addressed your location problem. That is, now I have to talk lower. They seem to have addressed your location problem. That is, where they can determine the locations that you're at with some accuracy. I'm not sure what that technology is, but is the general structure of that location technology publicly available, that you can use it as a standard in what you're developing?
Well, when doing augmented reality in that kind of area, it requires more detailed placeholder. It must be placed in particularly there. And if you move with it, it has to stand in the same place. With Pokemon Go, when you move your screen, it's just more in your screen and less in the ground standing. And thus, we don't want it to be moving all the way